My father took his life just before I was born. I was naturally seeking validation, selling my body, giving it away. I was HIV positive at age 14. Everyone around me believed that I was happy, that I was content, that I was just being the girl I was meant to be, and none of them had a clue that I was miserable. I took a book of witchcraft off of the shelf. I went down into our basement. I opened it up and I drew.
Well, you're about to hear a miraculous testimony from my friend David Arthur. If you've been with me for a while on this podcast, you're familiar with David's name and probably with his story. You may even know that David has had a falling away, but praise the Lord, he's back. And so today I want to share the first part of his story. We've broken this interview up into multiple parts because there's just so much in it. And this is such good material because it's not only about the miraculous, saving, redemptive power of God to change a life, but also the staying power of God, how God remains with us through our struggles and continually calls us to himself. So this story is going to bring hope to many people who have lost hope, many people who feel like they are beyond redemption. The word to you today is the gospel is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus loves you every bit as much now as he ever has, and you are never too far gone. So I encourage you to stick with us today through to the end, and not just today, but throughout these episodes as we release them. Stick through to the end of the story. You're going to find a lot of hope and inspiration and encouragement and freedom as you listen to this episode. The content of today's interview is not friendly to the algorithm. So if you would do us a favor and do the gospel a favor, do the world a favor, and go ahead and like and subscribe and share this video so we can beat the algorithm and you can help promote the gospel in all the earth. So without further ado, here is my interview with David Arthur. All right, so I have my good friend David Arthur back in the studio. David, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a blessing.
It's been years since you've been on here.
It's been many years.
And when you first got on here, we weren't doing video podcasting, so I'm glad to have you back. It's time, plus your story has developed since we first talked, and as it should be. Everybody, yes. If your story isn't developing, you stopped walking with Christ. And I don't mean
That's right.
I don't mean that to say in any way like you've lost your salvation or whatever. I'm not even addressing that. But a disciple follows Christ.
Yeah.
And if you aren't following him, if you aren't changing, you aren't following him.
If your testimony is not continual, then you've paused somewhere along the way.
Yeah. I tell people that you lived as a female prostitute, and I never say it without the air quotations. I use those a lot. If anybody's been watching the podcast for a while.
I do it too. I say transgender woman.
Right.
You know.
You did your own street drugs and street attempts to change your gender.
Yes.
You were in and out of prison. I believe attempted murder. But
no, there was something close to it. It was more like an aggravated assault.
Okay.
And then an aggravated battery.
Okay. So you had full-blown AIDS, osteoporosis. You were on your deathbed. You didn't look anything like you do right now.
Certainly not.
And
hallelujah.
Yeah. Today you are a man of God, serving the Lord, setting the captives free. But take us on the journey that you've been on, because I would say we couldn't have had two more opposite childhoods.
You know, I was a member and advocate of the LGBTQIA rainbow movement for over 30 years. And I was, for 20 of those years, I was a trans-identified. That's how I like to put it now. I don't like to give that spirit any more, credit than it deserves. My father took his life just before I was born, so I was naturally seeking validation from men. And there happened to be men who could target the vulnerable, and they knew just who to target, and they took advantage. I was molested several times as a youth. I call them STDs now, because I understand the whole demonic thing and sexually transmitted demons. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is attacked or abused, there's a transference of some type of demonic activity or oppression, possession, whatever. Probably about the age of 7 or 8, I took a book of witchcraft off of our shelf. We didn't have a Bible in our home, but we had a few books on witchcraft. We had a Ouija board in our home, and I took a book of witchcraft off of the shelf, and I went down into our basement, and I opened it up, and I got some chalk, and I drew the circle and all the little designs inside of it that was in this book. And then I sat in the middle of it and read the words.
Did it instruct you to do that? Did you read it and say, "Oh, now I'm supposed to sit in it"? What made you do that?
I just did it.
Nobody instructed you on that.
No, the book didn't give you like directions, draw this, sit and read. It just had the symbol on the page, and then the next page had these words, and I drew it,
and
sat
nothing.
in it.
Did it have a diagram of someone sitting in it?
No.
Because I always hear that's what is done in those rituals. So I'm just putting this down as a marker because we'll get into this deeper. But that it's very strange that a child would do that.
Absolutely.
There's nothing natural about that.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And it was directly after that I started with the gender dysphoria, as they call it, right? This dissociative disorder. I started believing this lie that I was born in the wrong body, that I was supposed to be a girl. It's so vital that we understand that this was 45 years ago. There were no drag queen story times. There were no all age friendly drag queen shows. There was no rainbows in the schools. There was no LGB curriculum. There was none of that. That just shows us that it's nothing but spiritual.
Because you're saying a voice was saying to you, you're in the wrong body.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like I just knew I was supposed to be a girl. And so I did talk to God twice in my young life. And it was around that time, that was the first time. And it was when I got down on my knees and I said, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Can I be a girl when I wake up tomorrow?" And when I didn't, the next time I talked to him was to shake my fist up and say, "Why did you make a mistake? You messed up." And so my childhood was pretty much the same at 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I was sneaking out of the house. I was going out. I was hanging out with prostitutes, with drug addicts. I was engaging in sexual activity with numerous homeless people under the boardwalk in Atlantic City.
As a child?
As a child. I would cut school and I would sit at a bus stop and wait for some pervert to come along, basically, and ask me if I needed a ride somewhere, if I wanted to go get some ice cream. And I would go because I wanted him to love me. And so I associated that molestation with love, with male validation. And I would go stand on the boardwalk in the public bathroom and just stand in front of a urinal and wait for him to come along, and he always came along. Young or old, he always came along. And it's a lot, right? There's so much damage done. When one person is abused and there's a transference, what happens when one person is abused hundreds of times by hundreds of men and boys? I was engaging in activity with men and boys. So to me, there was nothing wrong with that. I was kind of like frozen in time as that child throughout my prepubescent and into my pubescent years.
So one of the things, the scriptures say that the two shall become one in marriage. In the sexual encounter, it creates a soul bond, soul tie.
Yes.
Obviously, in that case, what you're talking about, you had a lot of ungodly soul ties.
Yes.
Obviously, there was something in you that liked what you were experiencing, And because you kept pursuing it, did you feel like you were being added to or being subtracted from? Maybe you never even thought of that.
I don't think I've really ever sat back and considered it. I do, other than I can look back and see how I went from being a pretty happy child. I mean, we had a, dysfunctional family, but I had a mom that kissed me, hugged me, and said, "I love you" every day and every night. I had family members, cousins, and that were always there, that we were always around each other. I mean, sadly, I came to know that some of them were also abused by family friends over the years, and which led them down their own dark paths of drugs and crime and alcohol, whatever. Mm-hmm. I always thought it was me, right? I thought it was like me instigating
the encounters
with these people. Now, of course, I know a child can never consent, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But whatever's in control of that child can consent. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I always felt like it was me, mm-hmm. because it wasn't actually me. A lot of times I let others think they were manipulating me. It's like I went from being a child to a manipulative little person. I had a sense about me that I shouldn't have had at that age. Mm-hmm. I could look and know who I could manipulate.
Where did that come from?
I have no idea. Well, now of course, I can sit back and say, well, when I sat in front of, on my basement floor in this witchcraft sigil, right, and read these words, I opened up the floodgates of oppression and demonic activity. So I believe that it was just that. It was...
I want to say that I think that was certainly damaging. But I wouldn't think that that's where the sexual part alone comes from.
No, the sexual part was before that.
Yeah. Yeah, that may have opened the floodgates in other areas, more like occult stuff. But it sounds like what happened to you was really in the family.
Oh, absolutely.
The bloodline, very much.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. It goes way back to... I had 2 brothers and I have a sister. And I pretty much am positive that they were also abused. Mm-hmm. In a totally different situation even before I was born. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, that's how a generational curse can work, is that it's like it's something inside you that is pushing you towards and creating the atmosphere for you to get abused. It's like something on the inside.
I clearly see that. Probably when I was 13, I overdosed on pills. I was just about 13 or just about 14, one of the two, but I was around 13. And that was it for, my mom was at her wit's end with me. What do I do? He's sneaking out of the house. He's not even a teenager at the point, and he's sneaking out of the house. Now he's a teenager, and he's really getting out of control. And then I overdosed on pills, and she takes me from Jersey to Philadelphia. And so Philadelphia was, for me, it was out of the frying pan into the fire, because it was just the same rainbow movement and the same deviant characters and things going on, just on steroids, and so, but my mom said to me, she said, I had a son, I didn't have a daughter. You're David. You will always be David. You can't be anyone else. And I'm not going to deal, not under this roof, I'm not going to deal with it.
Because you were coming home with...
Oh yeah, I was coming home with girls' clothes hidden and makeup in my bag, or I'd still have mascara on, and I'd leave the house and I'd go to a friend's house, or I'd go in an alleyway or in a bathroom in a Dunkin' Donuts or something and put makeup on, and that's how I would walk around the streets and engage in that activity. So when she said not under this roof, it was like, okay, I'm leaving, and I ran away from home. And I lived on the streets of Philadelphia, and I was on drugs, I was on alcohol, I was a sex addict. Mm-hmm. I was a sex addict all of my childhood. And it's like, people are like, a lot of people don't grasp that. Oh, a child can't be a sex addict. Well, yeah, they can. When they are sexually...
your foundational identity point
was... sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was it. That was all I knew. And so when I fell into the hands of predators and families that pimped me out and gave me a home and basically trafficked me, right? I was also buying wrong sex hormones on the street. I was injecting them into myself. I was selling my body, giving it away. I was HIV positive at age 14. And at age 14, I went to my peers. I'm HIV positive. What do I do? So what? So are we. The blankety blank that gave it to you didn't care, so don't you care who you give it to. So to me, that was like permission to not tell anybody, to go out and just do whatever I wanted. I'm angry. And how dare my mother not want me to be a girl? How dare the world not want me to be a woman? Because in my day, we didn't do what they do now. It wasn't about, just throwing on a denim skirt and some toenail polish and a wig and going out to Walmart and go shopping. It was nothing like that. If you didn't look real, you would get shot or stabbed or beat up real bad. And so to us, it was just all about being as real as possible and then believing that that's because that's what we were supposed to be. And so a lot of people did that. A lot of homosexuals, prostitutes, did drag and then got on the hormones just to have more sex. Not even because they were gender dysphoric, but they did it just to have more sex with more people, because it opened up doors that they didn't have open to them as gay men. So there's all of these different aspects of it, but it's still all spiritual. It's waging within every single one of us at the time. So I'm in and out of county jail, in and out of juvenile detention, and then as an adult, in and out of prison. I'm all in. This is the only thing I have in my life. Everyone around me believed that I was happy, that I was content, that I was secure, that I was just being the girl I was meant to be. And none of them had a clue that I was miserable. I was broken. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I didn't want to live. I was angry. I was full of rage.
So you didn't feel love in all those sexual encounters?
Not at all. Not at all. But what I can tell you I did feel was when I would first come, just share intimacy outside of sex, because intimacy is not sex. Intimacy is intimacy, and sex is a whole different category. Sex is not another level of intimacy. It's two different things. Intimacy is what Jesus shared with his disciples. It's what David and Jonathan shared. It's what brothers share. It's what fathers and sons share. It's intimacy. And every time I came together with a man, I would experience what I call this sliver of happiness or a sliver of joy. But then it would just dissipate because it would turn sexual.
So the initial attention was like, oh, this is what I want, and then it turned
even
sexual.
Even the physical contact, like the hugging, the holding, it was like, I got it, I found it, and then poof, it was gone because it turned sexual. And that's so important because that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for that intimacy that we never had. I was on the rec yard and I was actually cheerleading for the guys playing basketball, and there was a correctional officer and he kept giving me the stank eye, as they say. And I just kept thinking, this guy's going to be a problem. And he says, you, come here. And I bounce over there and I'm like, what's up? What's your name? Paige. No, that's a girl's name. What's the name your mama gave you? David. And he says, well, David. He says, do you know that God didn't create you to be this way? Now, I was offended. I was hurt, angry, right? I mean, I was, how dare you, So, because I was arrogant, I said, of course he did. Look at me. I do this well. And I said something in our conversation about it being natural. And he said, well, if it's so natural, how many pills did you have to take to look like that? If it's so natural, how many procedures or shots did you have to look like that? And I didn't have an answer for that. And so he was just like, I'm going to tell you this every day because I can. And I was just like, okay. You know, and he did. Every day he would see me and he would say, hey, David, God didn't create you to be that way. And it actually got to the point where I would see him and I go, I know, God didn't create me to be this way. And then I'll be like, oh, don't say that. That's what he wants. But I can tell you this, Karl. I was 30-something years old. And that was the first man in my entire life that I was ever certain that he loved me. That he didn't want anything from me. He didn't want to profit off me or kick me while I was down or anything. He didn't want to use me, abuse me, nothing. Just love me and pour into me ever so freely what was poured into him ever so freely. And that was something really foreign to me. It was really new to me, and I wanted to be around him. I wanted to talk with him. And he never took the Bible and tried to read scripture to me, and he told me stories in the Bible. And one of the most important stories he told me was, he said, David, there was a man named Saul. He thought he was sincerely right in all that he was doing. He was sincere. He said he sincerely jailed Christians and murdered them and drug them through the streets and persecuted them. And I was like, okay. And he says, and one day this man Saul was on his way to Damascus. And guess who showed up? I said, who? He said, Jesus. He said, Jesus showed up, literally knocked him off his high horse, blinded him so he could see. And then he went from being sincerely wrong to sincerely right. And he went from being Saul to Paul. And I was just like, wow. Wow. And then he would say things to me like, David, when you get saved, he's like, your testimony, you're going to be able to reach so many different people. He says, I've read your jacket. I've read all about you. I know everything that you've done. He says, and I'm telling you that you're going to be able to reach people on so many different levels that you're not even going to know what to do with yourself.
That's why the Apostle Paul says that he wishes that all spoke in tongues, but especially that they would prophesy. That man prophesied over you.
He certainly did. And I used to just think about that. You know, all of the things that he said and all the stories he told me. And before I got out of prison, I was about a week away from getting out of prison. And I remember I was sitting on a rock in the backyard, and this homosexual came up to me. He's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I'm just sitting here thinking. What you thinking about? I said, I'm thinking that I've been with thousands, literally maybe tens of thousands of men in my life. I said, and there's one man that I've never given a chance. And he said, who? I said, Jesus. And he said, oh, you're just going crazy because you're getting ready to go home. You're just feeling it. And he walked away, and I was like, oh, maybe I am. So I get out of prison. I don't become a man of God, right? I return to my vomit like dogs do. And but there was a difference. I no longer felt comfortable being Paige. I didn't want to dress like a woman. I didn't want to wear makeup. And then it's like my dilemma was I was a man with breasts and, you know, that looked pretty much androgynous. If I was trying to be a man, no one knew what I was. But what I got to see in that process as well was, you know, all of my transitioning, right? Because with every step of transitioning, you think, all right, I'll find happiness and joy if I just get here. I'll find it if I just get there. And I was about a week away from getting castrated when I was in my early 20s. And I went to New York City. And that was, back in my day, it was a precursor to getting the entire surgery done. You had to be castrated first. And Nowadays they do the whole entire thing because they don't want you to think about it or suffer or see that you're going to suffer. And so I went to New York City to get castrated, and I'm sitting on a blanket on Coney Island with two transgenders that were post-op. They both had the surgery. I'd known them for years. We're all sitting there, and it wasn't just us three. It was a whole group of us out on Coney Island, but they're all running around and playing games and swimming, and we're sitting on the blanket and we're talking, and we're not talking about, again, this is how God can intervene, right? He can talk through anything. If he can use an ass, he can use anybody. And we're sitting and then we're laughing and talking, and all of a sudden they just get real serious and look at me, and the one says, "Don't do it." And I even said, "Don't do what?" And he said to me, he says, "All of my life I thought if I could just become a woman, I would finally get peace and happiness and find some joy." He says, "Now I'm legally and medically a woman, and I am more miserable now than ever in my life." He said, "I think about taking my life every day." And the other one looked at me and says, "Don't do it. You don't want to be us." He said, "I think about taking my life several times a day, every day." He said, "I drive home from work and think about ramming my car into the side of a building. I think about getting on the subway and just jumping in front of the subway." He says, "I think about these every day." And I was just like, wow. I was so moved by that. I went back to my hotel and curled up in a ball and cried and didn't do it. But I still lived as a trans-identified quote-unquote woman for many more years after that. And I just think about that a lot, because that is the same thing. And so another aspect, which brings us right to me getting out of prison, not wanting to be Paige anymore and not wanting to dress like a woman. And so what else I got to learn was all of my transition was about looking better and looking more real. And that was unnecessary, because I got to see that the same men who dealt with me as trans dealt with me as a homosexual man as well. So it didn't matter to them.
You didn't get more attention.
Yeah. You think you are. Mm-hmm. You think you are. But you're really not. Because the same guys that you're dealing with as a trans, they're running over and dealing with homosexuals too.
So in a sense, you're saying it's not even... the activity that you're engaging in is not logical. It's not even like a matter of attraction so much.
I think it's just a perversion that these perverted demons are just coming together and acting out. And,
unclean spirits have unclean appetites.
Right, and they're just trying to bring the lust of our flesh, once we receive this pleasure that we think is pleasure. Same way we think sugar tastes good, but if we've never had it, it doesn't taste good, right? So,
well, I think I might make it more like we might think that mud tastes good,
right?
Because sugar does taste good,
right? But if you've never had it, or it's not a part of your diet, like sugar doesn't taste good to me, because it hasn't been a part of my diet for a long time. So I don't put sugar in anything.
Oh, okay.
And because it just doesn't taste good. It tastes overly something.
Right.
Okay. But, it's like that, right? It's like, it's just our perversion, the lust of our flesh. We experience these things and we just think that that's what the world is all about. That pleasure. And that satisfaction. And it's just really not. We deal with this. We see this all the time in transitioning. We see so many people that are like, well, I'm happy and I'm content and I'm secure. And especially now, like since my return, I can say, no, you're not. I feel it. Right. I mean, and I'm at the point now where I can feel their pain.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
And when I feel it, it disturbs me because, one, I'm not used to feeling other people's pain and traumatic experience, that's going on with them. But two, it just makes my heart break more for them, right? Because I want to rescue them. I don't want them sinking any deeper in that it's not even quicksand, it's fire. It's a lake of fire that they're sinking into, and I want to reach in and yank them out.
Yeah, and I want to say that too, just about like your friends that are sitting on the beach, they had gone through the surgery. We think, Satan wants you to indulge in sexual activity. Like, we think of Satan as like the god of pleasure, and it's not true. He's the god of death.
Yeah.
And his end goal was not for you to be a homosexual.
Yeah.
His end goal was not for you to transition. His end goal was to kill you.
Yeah.
Which is why after they had done all the stuff that he had led them to do, now all they thought about was ending their life.
Right.
That's the position he wanted them in.
He wants and that's why I say, like, I call the Rainbow Movement the cult of suicide and death and chaos. Because that's what it is. So I was the trans kid. Everywhere you go, they're always like, well, you got to let the trans kids, they have rights too, and they need to be able to transition or they're going to kill themselves. And, well, no, because children grow out of that nonsense if you help them. And yes, if they transition, then their suicidal ideation will get worse, because suicidal ideation doesn't go away with affirmation and wrong sex hormones and puberty blockers and procedures and chopping off healthy breasts and
mutilation doesn't bring life.
Right?
Yeah, surprise.
It doesn't bring. It brings more pain, more depression, more angst. And more suicidal ideation, and you just want to end your life constantly. Yeah. It's all you think about.
Because it is a form of self-harm. It's self-hatred. It's saying, I hate my body, and so I'm just going to cut it up into all these pieces. Yeah. So it's just the prequel to suicide.
Yeah. And then they get to an extent where they're like, there's nothing else to cut off or cut up.
Yeah.
Or nothing else to take. Nothing else to remove. And I'm still not what I was told I would be, happy. And so that's what we have. I think what we need to really look at is the fact that this entire movement has totally lost any argument that they ever had about homosexuality being an orientation or being innate or transgenderism, because we can, one, see it as the world sees it, as a mental disorder, right? Or a perversion. Or two, we can really see it that they are actually contradicting every aspect of their own arguments. Because we have homosexual men, or I really like saying men claiming the homosexual identity, dating females because the females are on testosterone, had their healthy breasts cut off, and look like boys. Right? So that destroys the whole homosexuality being an orientation and the same-sex attraction. It shows you there's no such thing.
It just makes my head spin. I can't even keep up with it.
There's no such thing as same-sex attraction, right? It's just perversion. And then we have women becoming or trying to present as men, testosterone, facial hair, they do look like males. Getting pregnant and having babies. Well, you have to take on the female role to get pregnant. And you are a female if you are pregnant. And then you give birth to a baby and you're a mother. Anyone who cannot see the chaos, the confusion, and the death that this cult represents either doesn't want to see it or is a part of it, is a promoter of this evil. They're the unparents, the allies of this movement. And I think that that's so important, because people don't have a clue that your granddaughter can never be your grandson. And if you compromise and call your granddaughter John, then you have lost all power and authority to ever speak life into her. And so if you do hold your line...
So you're affirming the rejection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hold the line, stand firm in the truth, and let her walk out of your life. And when she comes to her crossroad, then she'll come. There's only one person she'll come to. It's you. Mm-hmm. Because you stood firm. But if you stand by her side while she's doing this, then her blood is on your hands. Mm-hmm. If you are truly someone's friend, you're not going to encourage, promote, and celebrate their mental disorder or their spiritual oppression.
Their self-harm. Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to try to figure it out and want to help them.
Yeah.
And figure out how to help them.
So what was the end of the road for you? Because you didn't go down the trans road any further.
No. So the end of the road for me was I got out of prison in 2006. Was just what everyone called Gay Dave. That's what they called me, Gay Dave. 2008, the osteoporosis. So let me just say, when I was 14, I got on wrong sex hormones. By age 20, I was sterile. By age 25, I had osteopenia, bone loss. By age 30, I had osteoporosis. And that was at the beginning stages. And then as my age progressed, so did the osteoporosis. So by 2008, I was hunched over, couldn't stand up straight, couldn't walk without a walker, and in excruciating pain. And I tell you that shows the just how strong the lust of our flesh is. Because I was in excruciating pain on all kinds of opioids, and I was still dragging myself to the nightclub, to the casino, to sell drugs, to the sex parties, to the orgies, to the park, to engage in sexual activity in the bathrooms and all of this other stuff, just dragging myself around on this. And one of the breakers for me was I went to see a friend, and he had custody of his two kids, his two sons. And I was standing on his deck, and I was watching his kids play in the yard, and he came and he put a drink. He said, "Here's your cocktail," in front of me. And I was already I just wasn't good with anything anymore, right? I was just kind of feeling like, what's there to live for, right? I mean, this is all just craziness. And then here he comes, he puts a drink in front of me, and I was watching his son play in the sand. And he leans over and he says to me, "He looks delicious, doesn't he?" And as soon as he said that, I'll never forget that little boy looking at me. And I saw me. I saw my face looking back at me. And I didn't say another word. I just hobbled my way back to my car, and I left. And I remember, I don't know if I said it or thought it, but it was like, if I ever crossed that line, because I was trafficked, and I did become an agent for my handler, so I did recruit boys into that movement all through my teens and my 20s. I lured in preteens and teens into that movement, into that cult, and I knew what I was doing because I was an agent for my handlers. But I just remember either saying or thinking, if I ever cross that line, I'll kill myself. It's like that was no longer who or what I was.
That's a very interesting statement, because that means underneath all of that hatred for yourself was actually like a deep longing to recover yourself. Because you didn't want to hurt you again.
And I just always remember that, and it's hard to talk about that scenario a lot because most people, I mean, we're human, so we don't get it, and we kind of think of, like, oh, well, why wouldn't you turn them in, or why would you this, or why would you that? If you ever walked in my shoes for half of my life, you'd understand, and you'd probably be just as perverted and deviant as I was.
Well, you said yourself, you went to the public urinal and you waited for the right, or you waited for someone to come along.
Yeah, anyway.
And they always came.
They always came.
Every day.
Every single
like
time.
that is not rare.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a rare thing.
Yeah. It's not rare. It's definitely not rare. And it happens so much more.
Turning that guy in wouldn't have changed.
Right. Those boys would have been placed into Child Protective Services, who happens to be the largest child trafficking racket in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Is Child Protective Services, DHS, welfare is the largest child trafficking racket.
Yeah.
So that's who they would have been turned over to anyway.
And I'm not saying don't do anything, and I know you're not saying that.
But, oh, no, I'm not. I'm saying, report it and do something.
But for you, this was just
for me,
part of normal
it just wasn't
world.
A part of my situation. I already had many sex crime charges, mostly all prostitution. One other sex offender charge that stuck with me for the rest of my life. So I wasn't about to go getting involved in that anyway. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I wasn't going to cross that line. I knew that I wasn't doing it, or I would have ended my life. And, all this pain and using a walker wasn't doing it. I was stricken down in 2009 with full-blown AIDS. I had infections in my brain, infections in my blood. I had boils popping out all over my body. And I don't mean like I had a bump here and I had a bump there. I had like Job boils. They were everywhere and they were painful. And they put hospice in place, put a hospital bed in my home, and said I had less than 3 months to live.
So be sure to stay tuned for our next episode to hear how David escaped death and is still alive today, preaching the gospel. I want you to know that no matter where you've been, no matter what you have done, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He shed his blood for you so that you would not perish but have eternal life, that you could be set free from all of that darkness and all of that oppression. If you need help today, reach out through our website, karlgessler.com. Click on the contact link and send me an email. In the meantime, be sure to share this video with a friend, subscribe, like it, help us preach the gospel. If you want to partner with us in ministry, there are donation links in the show notes below. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.